The room was nearly dark, the only illumination coming from a single overhead lamp that drifted in its flicker like a heartbeat in the silence. The lawyer's office was still except for the soft scrape of a paper sliding across the mahogany desk. No one spoke. No one moved. And yet, in that quiet, everything they believed about their family was about to be exposed. A father's will, three trusting siblings, one youngest son who carried the secret in his pocket. The truth hovered at the threshold, breathing through the cracked door. Outside the window, the night pressed in, cold and unyielding, its condition unnoticed by those inside, focused only on what lay hidden beneath the surface. The youngest son leaned forward, eyes flicking between the document and his siblings, his hand steady. He had rehearsed the moment many times, what he would say, how he would sound, but he hadn't rehearsed what it would feel like when the trust shattered in that room, when the bond of blood betrayed him, and when the inheritance he coveted would cast a shadow over them all. The siblings shifted. Their mother sat behind them, arms folded, her face a mask of calm, though nothing in her past had prepared her for what was coming. Outside, on a midnight street, the wind carried the distant cry of a dog. Inside, the door closed softly. Then the lawyer took a breath. "The will states," he said, "that all three children are to inherit equally. Unless—" His voice dipped, the pause lengthening like an exhaled secret. The youngest son felt his heart slow, then speed. This "unless" was the hinge. It was his cue, and it was the beginning. Because when the condition was read, the world they knew vanished. The family laughter, Sunday dinners, the comfort of long shared memories, all became something fragile, crackling like ice under weight. He heard in that moment the memory of their childhood, playing in the backyard, their father's booming laugh, the safety of being together. And then, that evening, a house filled with whispers, locked doors, and hidden envelopes, because the secret had been there for years, buried under loyalty, love, and the illusion of normalcy. But this night, the secret would be exhumed. The youngest son looked up. His siblings' faces were pale, rigid, the mother's lips pressed together. The lamp's light danced across the lawyer's glasses, shadows flickering like ghosts of what was to come. And as the condition was read, requiring that one sibling must forfeit their share for the youngest to receive the full sum, everything changed. Some gasped, others folded their hands, and one sibling stared with a look of betrayal sharpened by disbelief. In that room, the inheritance was no longer just a matter of money. It was the weapon. It was proof that love, when twisted by greed, stops being safe. It becomes dangerous. It becomes silent. It becomes deadly. The youngest son stood, his voice calm. "I accept," he said. The lawyer nodded. The papers slid again across the desk. The last flicker of trust died. Behind the closed door, the mother's breath caught. The siblings exchanged glances they would never erase. And the darkest family secret, woven through decades of unspoken tension, hidden negotiations, and quiet ambition, had been exposed. Before we go deeper into this chilling case, I want to ask you something. What shade of night are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments. And as the details unfold, ask yourself, was this act born of simple greed, profound betrayal, or something far darker? If you're drawn to haunting mysteries like this one, please tap the like button and subscribe. It helps us bring more stories like this one to light and keep the secrets exposed. The year was 2012. In a leafy suburb of a mid-Atlantic state, roughly 45 minutes from the capital city, the Richard Bowers family estate sat behind tall hedges and wrought iron gates, a picture of quiet success. Richard, a self-made businessman in his early 60s, had built an electronics manufacturing company from the ground up. Married for 28 years to his wife, Mary Ann Bowers, he was the patriarch of three children, the eldest daughter, Emily, the middle son, James, and the youngest son, Matthew. To many outsiders, the Bowers looked like the ideal family: summer barbecues on the lawn, vacations in the mountains, holiday gatherings with laughter and warmth. Neighbors described them as gracious, committed, and deeply familial. But beneath that facade, a delicate web of expectation and resentment had formed over time. Richard had always made it clear the business and estate would pass to his children equally, provided they honored the values he felt defined their family: loyalty, honesty, and respect. In practice, that translated into things like helping on holidays, stepping in when Marianne's health faltered, and showing up. Emily, at 35, was a public relations executive, married with 2 children. James, at 32, worked in the family business, had his own house, and seemed comfortable in his role as the middle child. Matthew, at 29, unmarried and living in a modest condo, had never felt fully embraced by his father's success. He bore scars of feeling overlooked, childhood stories of being the baby, even though he believed he had worked the hardest. Richard often praised Emily for being nurturing, James for being responsible, and Matthew got the encouragement, but never quite the spotlight. The community saw the estate as anchored in tradition: loyal housekeeper Mrs. Hughes, holiday dinners in the mahogany-paneled dining room, neighbors dropping in for iced tea. Autumn came with crisp evenings and the smell of burning leaves drifting through open windows. In those quiet moments, the family would gather, laughter echoing under chandeliers, a sense of continuity unchallenged. Yet the underlying dynamic, unspoken, ever present, was less peaceful. Matthew carried ambition. He watched his siblings' successes and wondered when the equal share would become his share. In 2010, Richard announced a change in his will, a clause giving the most cooperative child the option to receive the entire inheritance if the others voluntarily relinquished their claims. The announcement caused polite smiles, murmurs of interesting at dinner parties. But privately it stung. Emily phoned her father. "Dad, can we talk about this clause? It feels strange." She remembered his reply. "It's a test of character, Em. I want to know who stands by the family when it counts." James nodded but felt uneasy. He didn't voice it. He just kept working. Matthew heard the words and felt a flicker of opportunity. He told himself it was fair. He had not been favored. He had worked hard, and if the clause gave him a chance, why not aim for it? Over the next 2 years, the family dynamics shifted subtly. Marianne's health declined, doctor visits, short hospital stays, whispered concerns. Emily and James stepped in seamlessly. Matthew visited, offered help. For everyone, it seemed he was finally showing up. But that image masked deeper tensions. One summer evening, as the 3 siblings sat on the patio sipping wine, Emily said quietly, "I feel like we're in a race we didn't sign up for." James looked away. Matthew forced a smile. They didn't mention the will. They didn't mention what they sensed but wouldn't articulate. That the clause had awakened something in Matthew, a hunger he had kept hidden. The night sky above was clear, the cicadas long gone, the air still, and the secret stirred unseen. In December of 2011, Marianne suffered a sudden cardiac event that left her weakened. While she recovered, Richard's health too began to show cracks, a minor stroke, then complications. The family rallied. Matthew was there, consistently. Emily and James were caring. Others said the children were fulfilling their father's expectation of loyalty. What they didn't see was the ledger being kept in Matthew's mind, a ledger of time, of effort, of moments that counted or didn't. Then on a cold morning in February 2012, Richard signed the amended will in his attorney's office. The clause now active: if 2 siblings voluntarily relinquish their share in writing within 1 year of his death, the remaining child would inherit the full estate, estimated at $4.5 million. The lawyer sealed the document. The siblings shook hands. The facade of unity held. Everything seemed normal, but the clock had started. What no one realized was how quietly the whispers began. In the spring of 2012, Emily found a phone message on her father's landline. Call about change. She dismissed it. She assumed routine. James found his father home one evening, whispering with Matthew in the study. He backed out, left them to talk. He didn't think much of it, because again, things seemed routine. But the condition in the will lay dormant like a mine, until the first betrayal. On June 18, 2012, the housekeeper, Mrs. Hughes, found Marianne in bed asking questions she had never asked before. "Did you ever tell the children the real value of the company? Did you tell them how much we'd saved? Did you tell them how fully protected the estate is?" The questions seemed odd, but the doctor thought delirium. Marianne answered like someone not sure she remembered. A week later, she dated under hospice care. The siblings gathered. The memorial service in the estate's chapel garden, under white tents, candles flickering in the June dusk. The eulogies were warm. The youngest son stood beside his father, offering a steady arm. The eldest daughter held her children tight. The middle son said nothing. And the father, weakened but coherent, told them he loved them, equally and forever. 2 months later, Richard died quietly in his hospital room. A single, clear goodbye to his children. In the reading of the will, the lawyer announced, "All 3 children are beneficiaries equally. except that if any two sign the document relinquishing their claim within 12 months, the third will receive the entirety of the estate. The room drew the same hush as before, and in that silence something shifted irrevocably. It was like the air changed, Emily later said. I felt something crack. Then the action began. On September 2nd, 2021, Emily received the letter. I relinquished my claim. It was typed, but unsigned. When she looked up, Matthew stood behind her, calm. She asked, "Did you print this?" He said nothing. She tore it up. James found a similar envelope in his mailbox the next day. Again, it was blank except for the typed line. His hands trembled. He took it to his lawyer. Neither relinquishment was valid, and the estate remained three-way. But the cracks were exposed. Days later, Marianne's financial advisor phoned Emily with an odd comment. Someone's moved the funds out of the trust into a liquid account I did not authorize. Emily froze. The advisor added, I flagged it for the attorney. The liquid account carried the balance of the estate, $4.5 million. The document trail led to one name, Matthew. The betrayal was no longer theoretical. The scenes now had witnesses. A near discovery happened in the estate's back office late one night. James, unable to sleep, went to fetch a file. He heard quiet typing. He peeked in the doorway. Matthew was there on the family laptop looking at trust documents. He froze when he saw James. They stared. Time froze. James cleared his throat. Matthew closed the laptop and smiled. Working late, he said. James nodded, said nothing, and left. He did not report it, for now. But the moment haunted him. The betrayal was alive. The poison was invisible. The youngest son had begun his play. To investigate, investigators asked, who would benefit if the other two children stepped aside? Who had the motive, the means, the silence? The lawyers looked at the sequence of withdrawals. They examined the trust documents. They asked why the youngest son had suddenly been meeting with offshore advisors. Accounts moved. The forensic accountant said, we found a shell company opened in his name. Witnesses recalled him saying at the family holiday that their father would be proud of whoever truly stood by him. Emily and James looked back and realized his loyalty had always been performative. And the darkness grew. Documents were obtained. The attorney's copy of the original will was compared with the signed version. Differences emerged. The clause had been altered. The date seemed inconsistent. The handwriting looked unusual. A forensic handwriting expert flagged it. It was a forgery, or someone wanted you to think it might be. Investigators visited Matthew's condo. They found tax forms, bank transfers, a folder labeled benefit. They found no direct admission, but they found the pattern. They found whispered phone calls, and they found betrayal. In a trial, the prosecution painted the youngest son as the architect of deceit, but he claimed innocence. He said, I believed I was fulfilling my father's wishes. The jury listened. They weighed the money, the documents, the quiet spaces where nothing was spoken. The verdict came down. Guilty on charges of fraud, inheritance interference, and criminal conspiracy. He was sentenced to 10 years. The estate? Liquidated. The siblings? Scarred forever. The mother? A silent figure still living in the house, windows closed, memories behind drawn curtains. Trust was gone. Family dinner ceased. The eldest daughter moved away. The middle son kept the house but changed the locks. The father's company sold off. The name on the estate gate changed. Money could buy property and titles. It could not buy relief. In the empty dining room, the echoes of laughter died. In the mother's bedroom, the scent of her perfume lingered on an untouched pillow. The youngest son sat in his cell, staring at a faded photograph of the three children on the patio, summer light on their faces. He wondered what cost he had truly paid. The siblings, years later, each acknowledged the loss. We lost more than money, Emily said. We lost each other. James said, the real poison was our silence, our unwillingness to speak what we sensed. And when someone else wrote the terms for us, we agreed without knowing what we were signing. The house once humming with life, now paused. The estate lawns unmowed, the gates rusting. A once perfect family facade shattered under the weight of one clause. One ambition, one betrayal. Sometimes the darkest secrets are the ones we keep from the people we love. And in this case, the truth was exposed. But the damage was already done. Do you think justice was truly served? Or are there still secrets left buried? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you want us to continue exposing the world's darkest family secrets and betrayals, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story we bring to light. The investigation began with whispers and ended in the glare of courtroom lights. After the estate lawyer noticed discrepancies in the signed documents, a quiet inquiry turned into a full-scale financial investigation. Detectives from the county's Economic Crimes Division arrived at the Bowers estate one gray morning in October 2012. The sky hung low with rain, the kind that seeps into bone and memory alike. They carried not guns, but boxes, scanners, and quiet determination. They photographed the office, collected hard drives, and sealed folders with red tags. The air in the house felt different, no longer a home, but evidence. Emily and James watched in disbelief as years of family history were packed into plastic bags marked Property of State Investigation Unit. When the lead detective, a man named Holt, spoke, his tone was gentle but certain. "We're not after anyone, Bear," he said. "We're after the truth." The truth, however, had become a labyrinth. The documents told one story, the emotions told another. Financial statements showed a steady pattern of withdrawals from the family trust, each carefully spaced, each disguised as legitimate transfers. The transfers stopped the week after their father's death, when the will took effect. The name attached to them, Matthew Bowers. When questioned, Matthew claimed his father had authorized the moves before passing. He said he wanted the money ready for liquidation, he told detectives. But there was no supporting note, no signature, no witness. "I just did what Dad told me," he insisted. Yet one by one, his statements unraveled. Emails recovered from his laptop hinted at pre-planned transactions, offshore accounts, and draft agreements never shared with the rest of the family. Investigators traced one email thread titled Contingency Plan A. Attached, a scanned copy of the will, modified. The metadata showed it had been created days after their father's stroke, when Richard Bowers was medically sedated. Forensic experts confirmed the handwriting on the modified clause was not the father's. A forger had mimicked the strokes well enough to fool the casual eye, but not the analyst's trained lens. The implication was staggering. Someone had not only planned to exploit the inheritance clause, they had rewritten it. Emily sat in the attorney's office when the results came in. The rain outside blurred against the windows, streaking downward like slow tears. "He forged it?" she whispered. Her attorney nodded. "Allegedly, but the evidence points that way." That word, allegedly, hung heavy. It was the last defense between family loyalty and criminal indictment. Detective Holt followed the trail further, uncovering financial communications between Matthew and an unknown advisor in Delaware, connected to a shell company named Ridgeline Holdings, LLC. The account had been opened 2 months before their father's final hospitalization. Transfers totaling over $1.2 million had already passed through it before the death certificate was issued. When asked why he needed the account, Matthew's reply was clinical, estate preparation. But the timing spoke differently. As the investigation deepened, Emily found herself replaying every conversation with her youngest brother, searching for clues she had ignored. The nights he visited unannounced, the sudden interest in family finances, the quiet deflection whenever their father's health came up. She remembered once finding him in their father's study, staring at a framed photo of the family, eyes unfocused. When she asked what he was thinking, he had said softly, "It's strange how some things are only real when they're written down." She hadn't realized what he meant until now. The prosecutor assembled the case piece by piece: forgery, fraud, conspiracy. The motives were greed and desperation. The weapon was paperwork. But every story has its shadow bomb. For all the evidence, there remains something human beneath the crime, a sense of inadequacy. In a court-ordered psychological assessment, Matthew spoke of always feeling like the extra son. He said, "Dad built the company with James. Emily had the perfect family. I just wanted to prove I could do something big." Proving it cost him everything. When the trial opened in March 2013, the courtroom filled beyond capacity. Reporters lined the hallway. The local paper ran the headline, "Bowers Estate Scandal Exposed." The siblings sat on opposite sides of the aisle, blood divided by law. During testimony, Emily's voice broke only once. "He was my baby brother," she said. "I would have given him anything. He didn't have to steal it." James looked at his brother and whispered something almost inaudible. A journalist sitting nearby later reported hearing, "You poisoned us, not with chemicals, but with silence." That line spread like wildfire across news outlets. The defense argued that Matthew had acted under immense emotional pressure, that his father's clause created an impossible moral dilemma. But the jury saw through the justifications. The forged clause, the secret accounts, the altered dates, each piece aligned too neatly. After 12 days of testimony and 9 hours of deliberation, the forepersons stood. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. The sentence? 10 years imprisonment and full forfeiture of the estate proceeds. As the gavel fell, a strange hush filled the room. No cheers, no cries, just the soft echo of consequence. Outside, reporters swarmed the steps. Emily declined interviews. James walked to his car alone, and Matthew, handcuffed, head bowed, was led through a side door toward the waiting van. But stories like these don't end in courtrooms. They echo in empty houses. Months later, the estate sat abandoned, paint peeled from window frames. The garden, once trimmed by precision, grew wild and uneven. Inside, dust gathered on the grand piano, the same one where Marianne used to play after dinner. Neighbors said they sometimes saw a light flicker at night in the upstairs study, though the house was officially unoccupied. Others claimed the sound of footsteps, faint and rhythmic, could be heard through the hedges. Maybe memory refuses to leave. Maybe guilt leaves its own haunting. Emily moved west with her family. James sold his share of the business. And Marianne, quietly, began donating what remained of her savings to community scholarships under her husband's name. She said little in public, but one neighbor recalled her words at the memorial service a year later. A family divided by secrets is no family at all. In 2021, after serving 8 years, Matthew Bowers was released on parole. He returned to the same town where his family name once meant success. He lived in a small apartment overlooking the river. Reporters sought him out, but he refused interviews. One, however, managed to speak with him through a cracked doorway. The journalist asked, "Do you regret what you did?" Matthew paused. His answer was quiet. "Regret is easy when there's nothing left to lose." The door closed. The following spring, the Bowers estate was sold to a private developer. The gates were torn down. The family crest removed. In its place, a new sign, Ridgeline Residences. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The town moved on. But for those who remembered, the Bowers case became a cautionary whisper, spoken at dinner tables, shared in law classrooms, dissected in podcasts. Because greed rarely announces itself. It grows in silence behind smiles and good intentions. And by the time it's exposed, it's already destroyed everything in its path. Sometimes the darkest betrayals don't come with weapons or threats. They come with pens, signatures, and quiet words said in trust. This story reminds us that love can become currency, loyalty can become leverage, and that families, no matter how perfect, can collapse under the weight of hidden ambition. The cost was not $4.5 million. The boss was the family itself. And as night settles over what used to be the Bowers estate, the echoes remain, the laughter that once filled the halls, the silence that followed, and the truth that was finally exposed. Before we close, I'd like to hear your thoughts. When loyalty and greed collide, which side do you think wins more often? The heart or the hunger? Drop your thoughts below. And if stories like this one keep you questioning what hides behind ordinary smiles, make sure you like, subscribe, and stay with us. Because here, every truth will one day be exposed.